scan submissions to pinup areas, digital pinup areas, with your name and with your face, so we can all appreciate your name and your face. And you're all invited to this board as reviewers, which gives you the ability to use the pen tool. There are a couple of pen colors that you can draw things on. There are highlighters. There's pink and green and orange and highlighters, where you can circle things and point out things or call out things. There are sticky notes, a couple of varieties of sticky notes where you can drag a sticky note and then enter text into that sticky note. So those appear. And then there's a comment tool which takes your name and adds your comments, so you can actually start a thread. And so folks can reply to that thread, and it starts like a little Twitter discussion. Actually looks like a Twitter icon there. And so those are the 4 types of create feedback loops, and potentially even public participation, we'll see. Concept board is fairly easy to use. You should be able to pick up these review tools pretty quickly and navigate around it. A mouse really helps, so that's a thing. But I've placed your work in these individual pinup areas for y'all to take a look at each other's progress and provide some positive reinforcement. With that non-photo blue pencil, a couple of arcs, loose arcs like that. And I'll unseat the cap from the marker, and with just the toe of the marker contacting the paper, start with the toe of the marker and then make a very fast lift. And do that, I'll repeat that several times in a row. So strike, drag, and pull up. Strike, drag, pull up. Strike, drag, pull up. You can change the direction and overlap as you go. But the toe of the marker begins at this arc, and it involves a strike, drag, and pull up. Strike, drag, pull up. Strike, drag, pull up. What that creates is a point at the end of the stroke. So get comfortable with that. It'll be very wet, as you can see. It should be fine. Okay? Just get comfortable with that. That's just the toe of the marker only. Strike, drag, pull up. Strike, drag, pull up. Informally, we call this a flicking motion. Flick, 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 flick. So now it looks like Bart Simpson's hair or an eyebrow or something like that. But it is a very specific technique that you can make just with this short contact of the marker onto the paper. Try it a couple different directions until you're comfortable with it. So get some variety in the stroke. So you have some long and some short. This is what we use for grasses and for palm fronds. Make sense? And for broadleaf flowers. So this would be the base of a tulip. Etc. Simple enough? Yeah, straightforward enough? Good. All right, next one is called the sweep. I'll have my towel in my non-dominant hand typically pointed around my pointer finger that allow me to pick up any bead that's annoying me. Okay. So I'll unseat the marker and just start with the full chisel perpendicular to my hand, and I'll go back and forth, smaller, 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 until I reach a point. back and forth, smaller, 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 till I reach a point. Back and forth, smaller, 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 till I reach a point. If you have an annoying bead, pick it up. If not, leave it, no worries. Back and forth, small. Try a few different sizes, a few different big ones. Just get comfortable with that direction. Notice I'm right-handed, so I'm going from left to right. If you're left-handed, try it the opposite direction. Working towards your dominant hand. I used to call this a feathering technique, but I just prefer now to call it the sweep. So that's the full chisel, back and forth, smaller, contracting, and when with a small gradual lift, right? Does that make sense? I'm basically, when I make that final dot, I'm kind of lifting off the marker as we're working. Does that make sense? Yeah. I even have it in the notes. Brilliant. Yeah, okay. And that little dot at the end is optional. Okay. Much of our deciduous trees are rendered with this stroke. Combinations or layers of this stroke. Thank you, Mark, for demonstrating the correct ways.
Other people pull the math down from my hands.
Yes. Tursky was telling me about that. He's like, there's one thing that set Tursky off is seeing someone take off their mask and sneeze it. And just, wait, this is entirely opposite what we're trying to do here. It's like putting a square wheel on a car and thinking they can all go. The whole point of wearing the mask is to contain something, and not to. Anyway, well, I didn't want to get my mask dirty. Well, you're supposed to wash it. Fun fact, yes, you're supposed to wash it. Woo! Anyway, but thank you, Mark, for demonstrating the correct. All right. Spin is similar to the sweep. We're going to actually do the same motion as the sweep, but we're going to be turning the barrel of the marker quarter to half turn as we go. So you can see, back to my first grade teacher's pencil grip, resting on the side of the nail of the middle finger, on the cushion of the index finger, and supported by the thumb. In first grade, you could not get past first grade in Michigan in the 80s without holding a pencil this way. They would send you back to kindergarten. Anyway, and I was educated by a generation of World War II widow wives, and they didn't care. They're like, we will hold you back. At any rate, what this does is allows your three fingers to make the barrel turn. Try this for me. Back and forth. Okay. And it doesn't put a lot of pressure on your carpals when you do it. If you have the Vulcan death grip, then this is going to be less successful, if you know what I mean. Okay. So if you're cradling the barrel between your three fingers, as directed, you can do a quarter to half turn very easily. All right, so you then do the sweeping motion, but you're going to put a little twist on it. So it's not as, doesn't look as boxy as the other one. And what you'll find is every single time you do this, they look different. Well, okay. Well, see, the major difference between this and this is that these start to look the same after a while, or very similar. This will get us to more random, more organic, more natural looking stuff, because each stroke will look different each time. You're putting enough stress or difference on the barrel that no two marks are going to be alike. When we're doing trees and foliage, that's the goal. You want it to look natural, not robotic, not boxy. To review, I'll do another page. I'm good. Thank you. I've got a couple dots here. It's a little bit of an air current. I'm just making sure. I'm doing another page here just for the sake of the recording. Make sure we have it. Okay, getting comfortable with that? See the logic there? Is there some logic to this? Sure. Randomness, natural look, organic look. All right. Well, also doing this spinning motion, I'm going to pick up the marker up and down to try to get several different looking marks. So this is our pointillism. Now, many of you know pointillism from CAP498. This time, though, we're going to change the position to try to get as many different types of marks as possible. So I'm turning the barrel and making contact with the toe, the chisel, the heel, to try to get as many different types of marks as we can. This starts to become very valuable for leaf cover. And gives us a lot of different natural looks, so we can start to layer color together to give that impression of a tree. 1, 2, 3, 4 techniques that we'll use to move forward with. I'll go ahead and label front. So we will be building up color on the front and the back. And then I will start with a fine liner. First tree, we'll do a deciduous pattern. So a deciduous pattern tree in plan. Reference image is in the upper left. We start with a star pattern. Helps if I have a pen that works. So a 5-point star pattern. 0 and 2. And that becomes a shape in the middle of the circle. It has 4 or 5 points to it, Looks like a little starfish. Or Patrick. Patrick! So it can have 4 or even six legs off of it. It's good to make sure these shapes look different every time you do them. Again, this gives additional character to your work. Every tree has similarities, but has slight differences. But also, as you'll probably notice, some folks are drawing their own trees, scanning them in, making PNGs of them. You can start placing them in Photoshop. Or you'll notice graphics packs for sale that have hand-drawn trees you can purchase as a pack. Drop them in Photoshop or Illustrator. Those things are all happening. Those things are all happening. If I start with a 4 or 5 point star, then I extend the primary branches from that. Okay, so it kind of looks like the bottom of an apple or the bottom of an orange. You'll notice proportionally that star occurs right in the middle. These primary branches extend approximately 1/3 from the radius to the diameter of the crown. Approximately 1/3. From there, divide the primary branches into secondary branches. Give each one 2 or 3 extensions. You can even start to overlap them a little bit. These now go through to the second third. See the proportional relationship there? It's approximately the second third. Again, follow these steps, and every single tree that you draw will be a little bit different. I know folks use the CAP files and PNGs, and you put a line of trees that all look exactly the same. You can tell. I mean, there's this level of quality that you get when you read a plan that has a lot of trees that are all exactly the same. If that's your goal, fine. But if your goal is for them to look a little bit different, this will add more character. And if nothing else, you scan 5 or 6 different versions of these, you can start dropping them in and make a site plan look really good. I'm just saying, now we're at the point where we're working so fast and have so little time for some of this stuff. The CAD files or the PNGs or the clip art is starting to create some shortcuts. All right, from those, divide them again and take them all the way to the crown. But stop at the crown. Some of them may divide, overlap, divide twice into tertiary and tertiary branches, but basically stop at the diameter of the crown. I'll add another one in for good measure. Now, hopefully you look at that and go, well, that wasn't so bad. Well, no, if you take things step by step, it's not so bad at all. Now look at the negative space. You can. It's like looking at a poinsettia plant at Christmas, right? Right? So look at the negative space. It's kind of a star pattern or kind of a pinwheel pattern, or like that Christmas poinsettia. That randomness or that organic look is what we're after, right? That natural look is what we're after. Okay? Now take a scribble motion or a scribble kind of mark and add in some stuff around that perimeter. And that finishes that pattern tree. So this would be a deciduous tree in plant view. Probably even early spring. We don't have any leaf cover on it yet. Sure. second technique. I call the pinwheel technique or the rotating knives technique. Pinwheel technique, start with the point in the middle that represents the radius. Make a straight line to the crown, but come back at a arc. So it's like a stretched letter D. Do that again and again. Make them as random as you can. Random. Random. Make 5 or 6 of those. And then fill in the rest. So these are now the branches. You now can extend from those to the diameter of the crown. See how fast that was? Some folks like this technique because it's actually less steps. Wow, right? I mean, that was fast. And then give that an edge. What do you think? What's your reaction to that? These two different techniques. Similar, very similar. They make references to the center point, they make references to branchings, they make references to extensions to the heart. So this is star, this is pinwheel. Next technique I call it cauliflower. It's like looking straight down at a head of cauliflower. We're going to start at the outer edge first, but we're going to make a broken line that goes in and out, in and out. It finds the crown, it wanders in, it finds the crown, it wanders in again. It finds the crown, wanders in, finds its way in and out, all the way around the crown. As random and as natural as possible. It's a wandering line. In addition to that, there are negative space pieces in there. So I call this one cauliflower. I don't know why. Just came up with it last year. It is looking up, like it's looking down at the head of the cauliflower. So this is a horse, head, legs, tail. It's like a little cave painting. All right, it's a bad horse, but I want to get a trunk and a kind of really gnarly primary branches. This would be like for live oak or something that has something that's lower to the ground, maybe an ornamental. So it's similar to the star pattern, but it's got a lot more going on at the trunk and with its primary branches. And we'll do a lot more overlap, a lot more crossing over with this one. So this is one of those gnarly, close to the ground ornamentals, or like a really, really old live oak. But start to pull away divisions from that, and as you extend, overlap a little more.
really get those limbs overlapping. So it's another version of the star, but it's a little more gnarly. And then divide and take the branches all the way to the crown. And then put an edge around it. The maypole. Anybody been to a maypole festival? It's an old European festival where people tie streamers to the top of a pole and then they dance around the pole and until all the streamers are tightly knit around the pole. Okay, so that's a traditional European folk dance of the maypole for a May Fest or a spring festival. There is a radius point. On the shaded side, there are more radii. On the sunny side, there are less radii. It is a technique to quickly represent a conifer. So more radii on the shaded side, less radii on the sunny side. It is a fast way to indicate, all right, most branches on a conifer are radius-based anyway, right? Most branches are radius-based. They go all the way to the trunk. There is some division, but not as much division as there is in a deciduous tree. Most of the branches have referential nutrition to the trunk. And then we put an edge around it. I reference the branch, I come in and out towards the canopy, make little divots, divot, to give texture of the edge of the canopy, like so. Okay? And then finally, the tribble. This is a Star Trek reference. The trouble with tribbles, the most famous episodes of the original series. And then tribbles were famously referenced again in the new films. Tribble is a furry organism that has no eyes, no face. It's just basically a ball of fur. All right? Ball of fur. There's a reference radius. There's more fur on the shaded side, less fur on the sunny side. So less fur on the sunny side. I start from the crown and just make a series of strokes that are referencing the radius point. Just work my way all the way around them. And then I layer up. I put the next layer up, a second layer of strokes, all referencing that radius point. But there are less on the sunny side, more on the shaded side. This works for conifers and dense shrubbery until that disappears to the radius point. And I give that an edge as well. So this could be a flowering shrub. This could be a conifer. So it could be burning bush or forsythia, any of those ornamental flowering shrubs. There are some minor circles that I've placed in as well. Those can be, there's a couple of different techniques that work for broadleaf or ornamental shrubs. I'll layer those in underneath. There's a pinwheel pattern where I go back and forth, back and forth. These join together, back and forth, make a loop back and forth. Gives a very fast broadleaf or flowering shrub pattern for that. We can also add some grasses or flowers, star patterns, reference point, back and forth, scribble, scrub, back and forth, pick a point, scribble, scrub, back and forth. Add those in if you wish. This is a drafting technique for contour lines to represent terrain, reference point or radius point. Fine line pen, barely touching the paper, textures that in, reads as a sloped ground cover. Feeling lucky? Well, we can put in a path underneath one of these, like so. Concrete path. Put it right underneath them. Divide that up. Expansion joints. Just draw as much or as little as you're comfortable doing. We're going to put it right underneath these trees, though. The rendering technique will include color for the ground cover. The trees appear transparent overhead. Other techniques. For a ground cover, I take my parallel glider or a credit card or an ID card, and I texture in a series of vertical strokes against an edge. Fast, effective ground cover for this scale in plan view. Fine line pen. Fast, textured ground cover against the straight edge. Could be a credit card or an ID card, Starbucks card, whatever. But this allows you to quickly convey a textured ground cover against a flower bed, planting bed, or mulch bed. It also works upwards. I can work upward. It works downward. Works either way. Just a fast ground cover for plan view. Okay, ready to flip it over. I'm going to retape it, but offset just a little bit I'm going to offset it just a little bit here, away from the circles. So not right on to the circle, but offset from the circles slightly. You'll notice, you'll notice I'm pulling down, either down to the left or down to the right, slightly. I'm just going to pull that off just a little bit. Not much. I don't want to overdo it. I want to pull those off to just slightly offset. We're now on the back. On the back. Okay. I'm going to start with a light green. You can use yellow green, or I'm just going to go with very vivid yellow green for this one. Got my blending towel ready, and I'm going to concentrate while spinning the barrel. I'm going to concentrate some of this marks of this yellow-green on what will eventually be the sunny side of this tree. A little few marks on the shaded side, but concentrate this yellow-green on the sunny side of this tree. Will become the sunny side of this tree. Next, I'll pick a medium green. It might be a moss green, palm green, grass green, something in that medium range. Let's see what I have here. Could be apple green. Next, I'm going to layer in some of that medium green into this portion of the tree, away from the sun. So now it's got a contrast of a yellow green and this medium green or apple green. And then I will take an emerald green or a slate green, something darker, and concentrate on the shaded side of the tree. I'll put a few dots of it everywhere around that crown, but I'm going to concentrate these pointillism, these strokes or marks, as I'm turning the barrel. This pointillism technique, I'm going to concentrate the darkness on that shaded side. Of course, I have approximately 5 to 10 seconds to do any blending, if I wish, of these successive colors. We now have three stepped wash or stepped layers of 3 greens now on there. We can pick an autumnal scheme. We want to do an autumnal scheme for this one. Different color scheme. Let's try an autumnal. This has become essentially our sunny side. So this lower right is going to become my sunny side. It's the opposite side of wherever your circle underneath is happening. So I'm going to pick an autumnal color scheme for this one. I'm going to take my goldenrod and do the sunny side of this an autumnal tree using that pointillism technique, back and forth, turning it, getting different dots and strokes coming from the contact of the marker onto the paper. Of course, I'll do the entire perimeter, but I'll come back and concentrate goldenrod on the sunny side of an autumnal tree. The reference image is from Mike Lynn's book. I have a chrome orange here. I'll take this orange and do some pointillism. This will work as our medium color. And again, I have a few seconds to blend if I wish. And I'll end with either a desert tan or a craft brown on the shaded side of this autumnal tree. Desert tan will work, craft brown will work, sienna brown will work. Just some sort of brown on this shaded side of an autumnal tree. I'll carry thin dots around the whole perimeter, but I'll concentrate my brown on the shaded side of this autumnal tree. Blend if you wish. Let's do a lilac purple for this one. I'll start with pale cherry on the sunny side. Just a pointillism or dot technique all the way around. And working on the sunny side of this purple tree. This might be a hawthorn. Really popular ornamental, makes a very pink, purple range in the spring. If we were in Maryland or Virginia, we might use a crepe myrtle, which has a brilliant red flower, red to pink magenta flower. Next, I'll use sky blue. So pale cherry versus sky blue as the medium. And then end with blueberry on the shaded side. Carry thin dots all the way around, but heavy stroke on the shaded side of that hawthorn. You can see in the reference image one of the purple trees there, so that would be a spring flowering tree. There's several of those planted in our beans here. See, it's really red purple flowers. This is building several of the beans. If you have a lilac purple or pink, you can add that in too. Looks like I've got a pink here. I'll just add some of that in that as well. That's better. Let's do a spruce. So there's yellow spruce, blue spruce. I'm going to use a sky blue and just use this radius back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Notice the reference image. It's just a series of strokes back and forth from the radius point to the crown. I will layer a slate green with that. Slate green is a slight blue green. So slate green works really well for this. Give it a blend. Layer some more in there. blue spruce, pretty popular in Michigan. It has distinctly blue-gray color to it. It's not green like its cousin, the yellow spruce. Still has some green in it, but it has a distinctly blue trace. I'll layer in some apple green with that. Okay. What should we do here? Any thoughts on this one? We've done some nice variety here. What do you want to do here? Green orange. Okay. Yep. Okay. So let's do a green orange. I'll start with yellow green. This could be a forsythia, which has brilliant yellow flowers in the spring. One of my mother's favorite flowering shrubs. I'm going to put in some, that was yellow green. I'm going to put in some yellow or goldenrod on that shaded, sorry, on the sunny side. But a forsythia has woody branches, yellow flowers, and then transitions into green for the summer. It also has some orange in it, which is quite nice. So just a yellow-green to goldenrod to chrome orange. I'm just going to reinforce some orange on that side. Just give it that look of a brilliant spring flowering shrub. And then your choice for the final. We've got a couple different colors. We have a couple different color schemes we haven't explored yet. I'll try maybe a, let's see here. There's kind of a tan we could go for. Kind of a light brown. Tan to light brown scheme we could explore. Ending in a craft brown or a desert tan. Again, you have a few seconds to blend in that circular motion there. You want to blend those colors together. I'll accentuate with a little bit of yellow-green. I don't know what tree it is, but I like them anyway. I'll just do some pink on my ornamentals here. Some emerald green on these over here. Maybe those are heather or hydrangea or azaleas. And then finally, we'll take a grass green, hence the name. Grass green, very close to apple green, very close to palm green. In the AD set, they're all very close together, but grass green is fairly obvious that we can now layer in some ground cover Use the same directional stroke as the line work. Feather that out, feather that out, feather it out. Probably got a mulch bed in here for the grasses. One of my colleagues in landscape architecture, Simon, he swore against mulch. He hated mulch more than anything. It's a maintenance thing. I'll take a different green, maybe a palm green. I've got this aqua here. I've got moss green. I'll put in just a few different streaks of a medium green into this lawn. Moss green seems to work well. Just a few streaks or a few strokes of an alternating green to put a little bit of variation into this lawn. You've already done quite a bit of texture. That should be enough. But it's always helpful to have a couple of different greens in your ground cover in your lawn. I need to finish out my mulch bed. I've got grasses in here, so I'll just use a craft brown for that. And I'll just feather out these greens for this ground cover. Gives it just a little bit of variation so that the lawn doesn't look flat. We don't want it to look flat. There's always variation in a lawn. As the sun shines on it, there's variations. There's variations against an edge. There's variations against curvatures in the little humps or mounds. You just want to feather together at least two greens to get the color of your ground cover down. Pavement, you can leave white, certainly, or you can elect to use a 1 to 2 to 3 gray for that, but you can certainly, there's no fault in leaving your pavement pure white to maximize the contrast of your colors against everything else. But if you have a 3 gray or a 2 gray, it can add just a little bit, or 2 French gray or 2 warm gray. It can add just a little bit to the pavement, as you can see there. We have offset our templates so we have this circle underneath the tree. This is going to be our shadow area. If the shadow is contacting ground cover, we can add blueberry to green, and purple has a way of darkening things that contain yellow. Why, color theorists? Because purple is the opposite of yellow on the color wheel. Purple, this blueberry purple, also when added to the gray of the pavement, will model that color of shadow that we see when we analyze the color of shadows in Photoshop. So we just with blueberry, we can add a shadow to almost anything. Now, some folks don't like that. They prefer a really textured black or a very, very notable black. But blueberry has a way of adding darkness to green, adding darkness to gray, in a uniform fashion. So I just want to layer that in there. I can also add it to the shaded side of that tree, fill in any gaps. So I can add blueberry in here and add it to the textured side of that tree. I got grasses here I want to add some blueberry to, and I can layer it over the green or over gray. It will work for either one. Works on pink. It's a wonderful, wonderful marker to have because it's so versatile in terms of how it can layer shade or shadow on top of things that contain yellow, which most of our watercolors contain yellow. Okay, so I'll layer that in with that blueberry into some of the negative spaces. I'll layer it onto, if it's hitting that ground cover. Look at that. It adds to the green, doesn't it? It layers on top of that green. Now, I want to clean off my blueberry because it's now full of green. So you may want to clean that off. Just take your towel and take some of it off so it doesn't remain on the tip. You want to pull off any remaining green that's on the tip. Now, we're ready for colored pencil. So pinks, oranges, layer in some pinks. I'm doing the side lead hold. This is all 5 fingers. Allows me to contact the side of the lead and layer a circular wash of pink onto that guy. It just pow, right? Just lifts right off the paper. Taking the non-photo blue, make a circular motion around the blue spruce. The colored pencil layers with the markers and gives a roundedness that wasn't there before. The orange, again, the 5-finger grip. All 5 fingers are cradling. The end of the barrel is against the palm. Turn down, and you can use the side of the lead to go around the tree to blend these colors together. See how they work together now? They just sing together. Like one big happy family. The 5-finger grip, all 5 fingers. Okay? And then you have the opportunity to add character to your shadow. You have a deep green, intense green, or darker olive green. I can come in and add real darkness to that shadowed area where that blueberry was. That's now representing that dark part of the lawn. Not where the pavement is. I don't want to put the green on the pavement. I want good textured colored pencil in the portions of the lawn where the tree is capturing on, or is casting a shadow. Or the ornamental, or the shrub, or the grass. So this is a dark, dark olive. And that's just adding to the blueberry and describing the color of the shadow. I may elect to add some of this green, add more greens to things that I think need a little more green. Follow the radius point there. Just a little more on these grasses. Don't want to overdo it. Very easy to overdo it. With that 5-finger grip, I can contact the side of that lid and have it just wash and glide over the Canson paper. Any other accentuated colors, whether it be ornamentals, flowers, maybe this is heather or azalea, grasses, some yellows. I'm just going to repeat that star pattern, that in and out star pattern, back and forth radius point kind of pattern, just to give the impression of prairie grasses. We've got purple Shenandoah, we've got pampas grass. We use a lot of different ornamental grasses here in Indiana. Some native, some not. Most of them are native to this portion of North America. I never took a plants class. I do regret that I didn't take a plants class, but I learned a lot working with my parents in the yard, in the garden, and then later on, just starting to see a lot of the species that my landscape architecture clients were really fond of specifying. Once you have a color palette of color pencils that are reinforcing flowers, the colors that you have on the paper, reinforcing the shadowed areas, flip it back over for your finished product. Back to the front. Take away the circles. And you can inspect your work. So we've built up a lot of waxy buildup with the colored pencil on top of the marker washes, but we have not covered up any of our line work. The integrity of our line work when it comes to the scan is intact, right? None of that waxy buildup is covering up our line work. The lines read crisp and clear in the scan back. And I'm gonna sketch in a ground plane, just any ground plane. So there. And then I'll put in a human figure, so a 3-inch human figure. So really do take us up on the offer. Come into the urban planning office and sharpen all your pencils with our mechanical sharpener. It'll give you a good initial sharpen that'll get them ready for these different rendering techniques. So I'll put in a 3-inch human figure. And just as we did before, knock in that human figure. So that becomes a reference for scale. Next, with that non-photo blue pencil or red pencil, doesn't matter which, it needs to be visible through successive layers of trace paper. This is going to be a base, this is going to be a first overlay. I want to sketch in the area of a tree. Just the area of the crown of a deciduous tree. Okay, just very loosely layer in the area, anticipated area of a toe of the marker pointing away from your dominant hand. We're going to start by contacting the chisel at the ground plane. And as I go up, I'm going to go up to about here, about the middle of that crown. As I do that, I'm going to make a quarter turn. What will that do? Yes, it will make a thick to thin stroke. try it again. Okay. Looks like the tail of a possum, but it will make a truncated 6 to 10 long. Okay. From that, with the toe of the marker, I can pull branches from that now. I can take them all the way to the top. I can pull lines of nutrition from the trunk and start to feather, barely contacting the paper, by the way, feather them towards the crown. Feather them towards the crown. The trunk is the source of nutrition, water and minerals. The leaves are the source of the photosynthesis. It's the combination of these two things that the tree needs to produce sugars to stay alive. It's the minerals and the water from the earth. It's the photosynthesis in the leaves. The two have to be connected together. I feel very strongly that you have to know how a tree works in order to draw it properly. But this marker layer, this base layer, gives us things that we can trace over to draw the tree effectively. And the human scale figure gives us a scale reference for the drawing. Okay. Sure. So make sure this is completely dry. Our second overlay. My drafting dots are extra sticky. Extra sticky. And this is second overlay front. With the fine line pen. Now we can do outline of our person. And start to create an outline of the trunk and its branches. We can decide if the branches are coming toward the viewer, away from the viewer. We have that decision to make. Knock in the trunk. Okay. Then you can start to follow with a hit, what Travis called an hit-go-hit, or a stop-and-go line. See that dashed effect line? What Betty Edwards called a stop-and-go, what Travis called a hit-go-hit. Travis was a landscape architect who taught here with us a few years ago, also a Ball State alum. He taught for Mike Lynn for several years. Some of his techniques are incorporated into my class now. I learned from him. But you can start to branch off secondary and tertiary branches off of these red lines, which is really special. But you notice I'm not contacting the paper all the time, right? I'm creating a confident direction with the pen, but I'm stopping and going, or I'm doing a hit-go-hit pattern of continuous motion, but lifting the pen and hitting the pen to try to not have a continuous line. Why is that important for us for this branch pattern? Why would that be important? Yeah, because the leaves are going to cover those empty spaces. Yes, the leaves are going to cover the negative spaces. Yes. Good. A little more ground plane. I'll do my other tree. And I'm thinking division as I go. So branching off, hit, go, hit, or stop and go line. The red lines provide me a starting point. I can always add more branch divisions. Then I'll add some curvature lines. These curvature lines, same curvature lines I use for clothing. I'll just add a little bit of these curvature lines to the trunk. It just gives the viewer just an impression of roundedness or of curvature so that the bark of the tree doesn't look flat. We can also start to add in some extra texture to give a little bit of a textured bark. I can also then add more texture to the ground cover. And this is just a scratching or a scrubbing motion with the fine line pen. Okay. Put some ink down, flip it over. Take away your first overlay, save it for another day, save it for another exercise. In the future, remember that the overlays are completely reusable. You can use them for different projects or different times. They aren't always necessarily something you just throw away. They can definitely be parts of future assignments or future drawings. If you have a good overlay, good comfortable overlay, you can use that anytime. So I'm going to flip it over. This is now the back. Okay. Sky blue. If you don't have sky blue, do not use a different blue. I don't know how any way else to say it. For some reason, the sky blue is the only blue that works for this. The only blue that works for this. So this is to review one of our other techniques from earlier. This is the sweep or the spin technique. This is a sweep. I'm also turning it slightly. I'm feathering in some sky blue, and then I'm quickly blending it. Here's the deal. You're not painting a cloud, you're painting the sky between the clouds just to give a little bit of an indication of a background. That's all this is doing. But this is the same technique from before. This is the sweep technique into a dot, like so. It also works the other way, like so. So I can pull or I can push the marker, pull or push the marker to create that blue negative space. The cloud is the white that's left behind. Make sense? The cloud is the negative space, right? Got it? It only works with sky blue. If you have any other blue, particularly ultramarine, I mean, it's just too dark. It doesn't work. So this is very specific to this palette and to this marker pen. That's why we recommend that particular palette. Next, you can also use palm green, willow green, some sort of yellow green. Now, the branches are there. We're going to, using our sweeping motion, sweeping and twisting motion, we're going to start adding bodies of color to these branches. And they will layer on top of the sky blue just fine. Look at that. They'll layer on top just fine. I'm twisting the barrel, sweeping and twisting, sweeping and twisting, sweeping and twisting, starting to get some bundles of color, clusters of color, layers of color, to start to represent the leaf pattern. But it's the sky blue that's in the background is not bothered by it whatsoever. A few dots as well. We need to represent the leaves that are coming towards us, so we may need some dense clusters in the middle because the leaves are coming towards us as well. The tree isn't just growing to the left and the right, it's coming towards us as well as away from us. But that's that sweeping and twisting and pointillism. If you want to take the toe and just hit it with several dots, just dance around, come back and do sweeping, twisting, sweeping and twisting. Let's twist again, like we did last summer. Let's twist again, like we did last year. If you have excess, you can pick it up. And then go to our second green. I'm going to use apple green, you can use grass green. Underneath these clusters of leaves are leaves in shade. So I'm going to, while twisting the barrel, create a series of pointillism marks under the sunny side of these clusters of leaves. Under. Under. These are clumps or clusters of leaves being supported by the branches that we have there. They're coming towards us, they're going away from us, to the left and to the right. I'm doing now the medium green underneath these clusters of leaves. Okay. My other tree, I'm going to go back to yellow-green, do the sun-kissed, the sunny leaves, and then the shaded leaves. The theory is the same, right? We use different colors of green, or different intensities of color with the trees and plan, didn't we? Different colors on the sunny side, different colors on the shaded side. We use the same logic when we start to render the tree an elevation. Again, I'm using apple green. You can use grass green or moss green. The shaded portions of these leaf clusters. I'm using lots of dots too, right? I'm using dots everywhere to continue the texture of the pattern so the viewer gets a little bit confused and gives the illusion of leaves every which way, right? I'm using lots of dots to do that. Make sense? Yes? No? Si, non? Oui, oui. Oui, oui, c'est bien. Bon, étudiant de français. Et particular color avec un aquarelle. Oui, oui, oui. That was our second green. Our third green, I'm going to use either slate green or emerald green. Using just the toe of the marker, I'm just going to dot in the darkest part of each of these leaf clusters. The darkest part of these leaf clusters. The darkest leaves. Because leaves cast shadow onto each other, right? Some are closer to the sun, some are casting shadows onto others, some are underneath branches. These are the... So this is either an emerald green or a slate green. Darker side of the spectrum. You can use dark olive as well. The olive markers are, I actually have those in my home set. This is a school set I put together. So light olive and dark olive are good colors for this. Slate green or emerald green works well as well. These are the leaves that are in shade underneath these clumps or clusters of thick, thick leaf cover, thick foliage. This is midsummer. Our birder is out there. They're from the Muncie Audubon Society. And this is this pointillism, so I'm turning the barrel. I'm getting different marks, different levels of dots and color. The blue is in the background. Okay. I've got my number 6 gray, cool gray. I'm just going to reinforce the trunk. Trunks are not brown, ever. They're not brown. They tend to be gray most of the time. This is a 6 gray. I'm going to reinforce the trunk. And then I'm going to grab a couple of colored pencils, light and dark. This combination of light and dark colored pencils here. And going to, with a 5-finger grip, just going to, referencing the trunk again, just a color pencil wash that has a way of unifying a lot of the negative space and the marker colors that are there. Referencing back to the trunk, however. Sometimes I like to draw lines like this that reference back to the direction of the branch or direction of the trunk. So I get to the crown, I'll take this colored pencil and I'll be referencing back to the branch as the center, or the trunk as the center spine. Just gives a texture that points back to the line of nutrition. Texture that points back to the line of nutrition. Make sense? Take a darker colored pencil, similar thing. I'll just lay in some of that darker colored pencil, referencing back to the trunk. Back to the line of nutrition. Always referencing the direction of the stroke is referencing back to the trunk. So that's done. I'll flip it back over. Back to the front. Tape it down again. And then with the fine line pen, I'm just going to give a textured, sketchy edge to the crown, to that canopy. Textured, sketchy edge. Give it a boundary to live in. Just so that stops the eye, right? That stops the texture. Just gives the tree a boundary for all this color to live in. You'll notice in the example as well, there's a bunch of additional dark texture. This is a scribble technique, scribble, that gives lots of leafy texture to reinforce with line weight what we already know with the color. That pen is dying. That's 3. That's 4. I'm having terrible luck today. Maybe they got cold or something. I don't know. All right. So this is that scribble. That's the scribbly leaf, broadleaf pattern. We also can add more dots. And we can actually do individual leaves. The cursive S and the cursive G. For those of you that learned cursive, this is an old draftsperson's technique, can give the impression of an individual leaf. So S's and G's, S's and G's, S's and G's. I used to look at renderings in the 90s, that trees that were drawn entirely with cursive S's and G's, because it's a fast way of conveying a broadleaf, a single leaf. S's and G's. Dots. S's and G's, scribbles. Reinforce the color that you have there. Dots. Scribbles. Wherever the color occurs. But you established where the foliage was by where you put the color, right? Not the other way around. We didn't draw the tree and then render it. We rendered the presence of color, and now we are adding texture to that. And that is the deciduous tree at half scale. Half inch equals a foot.